wisdom for modern times. We have been spending the last few months already, believe it or not, going through the book of Mishlei, the book of Proverbs, trying to unearth the deep wisdom buried inside of King Solomon's book of Proverbs. I'm just letting people in right now, and we are almost there. Let us just make sure that everything is streaming properly, and we are good to go. Okay, so we've spoken about the last few weeks, we've spoken about this idea of arrogance, and we've been spending some time talking about the different types of traits that brings one to success, traits that enable individuals to transcend the material into something more profound. We spoke about how the root of all evil is arrogance, and how arrogance ends up destroying a person's soul. And what we're going to see today a little bit is a continuation of that, but from a different angle. What we're going to see today is that Shlomo Melech is going to talk to us a little bit about lust, and he's going to specifically focus on adultery and what that does to an individual. Now, when we're reading this, and we're going to read the psukim, the verses in a moment, you got to be mindful of a couple of things. Number one is that whenever we're talking about a male-female relationship in any of the books of the Tanakh, it's often a metaphor for the relationship between man and God. Okay, not just a relationship between man and man. So remember, there are three primary relationships that we're always dealing with in Judaism. One is between man and God, which is what a couple of weeks ago we had the 10 Commandments come down. The 10 Commandments are broken up into two luchot, into two tablets, right? You have the first 5 of the 10 Commandments have to do with laws that are related to man and God. And the last of the 5 commandments, right, the last 5, are laws that pertain between man and man. Don't murder, don't steal, don't kidnap, don't covet. Those are all, laws that have to do with my relationship with humanity. The first 5, one God, don't say God's name in vain, don't build images of anything in the heavens above and the earth below. Shabbat, honoring your parents, believe it or not, which is a fascinating conversation, but not for now, also falls into this idea of the relation between man and God, and not man to man. So we have these relationships, we're constantly rotating around. And today we're going to see how Shlomo HaMelech, how King Solomon deals with some of these ideas when it comes to, protecting yourself from a remarkably beautiful woman. So he says as follows. He says, "Lishamrecha mi'eshet ra'a michalkat lashon nachri'ah," to guard you from an evil woman, from the smoothness of a foreign woman's tongue. I'll explain all these things. Let's just go through these verses so that it's clear. Just letting someone in over here. Okay, fine. Al tachmod yafya bilvavcha va'al tikachecha ba'apapeha. Okay, don't desire her beauty in your heart, and do not let her captivate you with her eyelids. Don't let her bat her eyelashes at you. Okay. Ki ba'ad isha zona ad kikar lechem ve'eshet ish nefesh yikra tutzad. Because for the sake of a licentious woman, right, one can beg for a loaf of bread, but an adulterous woman can trap a precious soul. These are difficult to translate. So he says, it's a rhetorical question. He says, can a man draw fire into his chest without his clothes burning? Okay, if you're trying to follow along, I am in the 6th chapter of the book of Mishlei, the book of Proverbs. We're right now at Pasuk Chaf Zayin, verse 27. And he continues. He says, Im yahalech ish al gechalim, right? V'raglav lo tikavena. If a man Can a man walk on coals without his feet being burnt? V'lo yavuz leganav ki ignov lamala nafsho ki yirav. So is one who deals with his fellow's wife. Anyone who touches her will not be exonerated. Will be found guilty. Because a Kenamal Eshet Re'ehu lo yignav l'kanei haba v'lo yavuz l'ganav l'ki yignav l'mala nafsho ki yirav v'nimtza yishalem shivatayim al kol ha'on. Okay, so beito yiten noef isha chisar lev mashchit nafsho hu yasena. I just want to finish this up. We have one more verse. Nega v'kalon yimtza v'cherpato lo timache ki kina chamat gever v'lo yachmol bayom nakam v'lo yisa panai kol kofer v'lo yaveh ki tarbeh shochad. These are very strong words over here from King Solomon. He says a thief is not overly scorned if he steals to satiate or satisfy his soul when he's hungry. But when he's found, he would even pay 7 times to even give all his wealth to his house. But one who commits adultery with a woman is lacking in understanding heart. It's a destroyer of his soul. Plague and shame will this person find, and his disgrace will never be erased, because jealousy ignites a husband's wrath, and he will not have mercy on the day of revenge. For he will not be appeased by any ransom, and will not relent even if a bribe is being made. Okay, so we're definitely talking about some very deep things here. So let's go back a little bit. Okay, so we're talking over here about this. Al tachmod yafia b'levcha v'lo tikach be'apeha. Don't desire her beauty in your heart. We said l'shamrecha me'eshet ra. You got to guard yourself from an evil woman. Okay, so this is a metaphor for idolatry. Okay, which is equivalent to all of the transgressions. The Torah study is the only way to protect yourself from this kind of a lust. Okay, now, it's, of course, the rabbi is going to say, study Torah, Torah. We often forget that the Torah itself is not just a storybook of our history. It's not a book of historical events. It's not a book of laws even. It's much more than that. It's also a book of moral refinement. And therefore, when I say Torah study, you're right. Can a person who studies Torah be involved in adulterous acts? The answer is yes. Unfortunately, I've had those people come to my office. I've sat down with them. I have to deal with issues like this all the time, and it's a problem. Good people, well-intentioned, they know a lot, but they make mistakes. So when I'm talking about Torah study, I'm not talking about just reading a pasuk, reading a verse, reading a commentary, reading a Rashi, and that's it. That's not enough. The idea of limud haTorah is much more than just knowing the facts. Limud haTorah is about internalizing the ideas. What are we doing to become greater human beings? How are we elevating our soul? How are we spending time taking the stories of the Torah, taking the stories, the lessons of the mitzvot, and internalizing them? Not just saying, oh, okay, if on Shabbat, if Shabbat comes in, I got to stop carrying, or I got to keep kosher and I got to just buy kosher. That doesn't transform you. I know plenty of people who are very Jewish, but don't live Jewish lives. They're Jewish by association, but they're not internalizing the message of Judaism. And that's what God wants. God's not interested in the practice. He's interested in the heart. He's interested in seeing you internalize the ideas and developing yourselves, growing from them. So he says that the Mishamrecha Me'eshet Ra, how do you protect yourself from idolatry or from sin? It's through the development of your understanding of Torah. Not just the knowledge of the Torah, but internalizing the message of Torah. He says, Mechleket lashon nachriya, because you want to protect yourself from the smoothness of a foreign woman's tongue. An alien tongue that seals one's eyes. That means that this person who's speaking this foreign language, which is not a language of development, not a language of growth, but one that is all about lust, that will seal your eyes. You know what that means? It means you'll die. It'll destroy you. It'll be the destruction of your life. Okay? We're talking about how lust is the most powerful temptation in the world. Okay? It's a special power that, yes, both men and women have to deal with all the time. And that's why he says, Al tachmod yafia belvavcha va'al tikachecha be'apeha. Do not desire her beauty in your heart, and don't let her captivate you with her eyelids. Don't let her rob you of your wisdom by winking you into tempt. Don't allow this moment of brief lust, of looking at something that's inappropriate, or letting your desires like sink into something that can be so destructive to destroy your whole entire future just for a few moments of pleasure. Because for the sake of a zona, a licentious woman, one could beg for a loaf of bread. A harlot, a zona, can cause someone to become impoverished. That's what Rashi says. Until he's going to the point where all of his wealth is gone, and he's going to be in the streets begging for bread. That's how far it could go. You think it's one moment of pleasure, one moment of lust, one moment of lust, my friends, can be the beginning of the destruction of someone's life, unfortunately. The Vilna Gaon, Eliyahu Kramer, the famous genius from Vilna, says that this pasuk, this verse, refers to a Torah scholar who is losing himself to his desires. He allows his ta'avot, his desires, to control him. A person who allows his desires to control him is a person who is eventually going to forget his learning. You can't remember things. You don't have an organized mind if all you're doing is giving into your pleasures. Oh, I want this, I want that. You can't develop the proper structure necessary to build a human being, to build a soul. That person is going to be left with intellectual poverty, to the point where if a woman comes to the study hall to talk to that person about any of the mitzvot, ritual purity, taharat mishpacha, or of anything, this person will lose his ability to respond. Ve'eshet ish nefesh yikra tutzad. An adulterous woman can trap a precious soul. How does she do that? Well, it's very simple. She starts with her smooth talking, right? And she ensnares that soul, right? Because that soul is precious because it was free from sin. Every soul is precious because of where it comes from. It comes from the divine, okay? An adulteress can seduce the most highly respected person. It doesn't matter who they are. Anyone can be seduced, especially if someone's not trained. It's going to sound crazy, but how many of us are trained to protect ourselves from this kind of an attack, where someone is coming in, right? They're very handsome, they're very beautiful, and they're making advances on you. You're flattered, right? It's so amazing. And then one thing leads to another, and the next moment, you could be in a situation which is very compromising and filled with regret. What are the standards you create for yourselves? How are we thinking about, making sure that we're not surrounded by the wrong people? It's so easy to allow ourselves to enjoy a brief moment of pleasure, but unfortunately, those brief moments of pleasure are filled with all kinds of regrets. Which is why he says, can a person take fire into his chest without his clothes being burnt? Right? Obviously, no one's going to bring a burning coal to his garments and expect the clothing not to get burnt. Right? So why then would a sensible person expose themselves to temptation? You think you're not going to get burnt? When you're allowing yourselves to get lost in temptation, you are going to get burnt. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. Okay, some people say that cheko is, means the lower part of one's clothing, and yichateh as, the raking coals. Therefore, can a person rake burning coals with the lower parts of his clothing without burning it? But ultimately, the way to understand this is through the Meiri. And he says like this. He says that these verses refer not only to the association with an adulteress, but also to the pursuit of any unbefitting material excess. Okay, those pursuits, I'm going to explain this. Those pursuits ensure that a person's character traits will never be perfect, that you will remain where you are. And that's what the clothing represents, the outer parts of my shell. The clothing don't define who I am. The clothing is just the stuff that I wear to express myself to the world around me. My inner being is what I am. And therefore, if you are someone who gets lost into your passions, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, now I just want to preface this, and I'm going to say this. I say this every time I speak about some form of a pulling back in your materialistic pursuits. I don't want you to confuse. I'm not anti-materialism. I'm very, and not me, the Torah itself is very pro-materialistic things. Have a nice house, drive a nice car, wear a nice watch, wear a nice everything, whatever you need, get it. But that can't be the bane of your existence. That can't be why you're alive. You could have a nice car because you want to go ahead and do deals. You want a nice car because you want to help people. You want a nice car because you want something reliable. I get it. But that can't be why you're alive. You're alive because you want to do the good deeds. You're doing the focus is not the materialism, it's the use of the materialism. Why are you using it? On Shabbat, I buy the most expensive meat. I buy the most expensive wine. Not because I need it, I don't. But I'm doing it l'kvod Shabbat. I'm doing it for my guests. I'm doing it for the people that are coming over. I want them to feel good when they're having a nice meal at my house. I want it to be amazing. I want my kids to be blown away like, whoa, that's amazing. It's Shabbat. It's the best stuff ever. And I want that association to be there. So I'm going to overlay material because that's what we relate to, but that's not what we're here for. We're not here for those things. That's not the purpose. Enjoy those things. I had a rabbi tell me, you're going to get a mezuzah. You're going to get like a little mezuzah on your door. Get the nicest one you could possibly get. Get the biggest, nicest one you could get. You want to go ahead, go crazy. Don't worry about it. You'll be reimbursed for it. God will send you a check. Okay, you'll make that money back. Why? Because when it comes to spiritual endeavors, your intention is what defines the action itself. So I could go ahead and take a nice sip of water over here, which I really need. And I want to elevate that moment, that sip of water, into something much more profound than just me sipping water. I want to take this world around me that I have, that I want to enjoy. I want to take everything that I have in the world, all the physical things, all my pleasures, but I want to channel it into something much more profound than just the physical things that I have. But if that becomes the ends, excuse me, if the ends justify the means, you're in trouble. Okay, we want you to make sure, the Torah wants to make sure that you enjoy everything the world has to offer, but it just wants to make sure that your pursuit of pleasure is not the motivation for the pleasure, that the pursuit of pleasure is there so you could involve yourself in the development of your soul. That's what matters the most. You are a neshama. You are a soul that has a body. Or are you a body that has a soul? What do you identify with? Are you first a neshama and then a body, or are you a body first and then a soul? Ask yourself that question. How are you elevating yourselves? How are you building yourselves up? What are you doing to develop this greater understanding of your inner being, your inner consciousness? Can a man walk on coals without his feet being burnt? Right? These two cases are impossibilities. It's impossible for someone who is involved in adultery to avoid receiving terrible punishment. Impossible, right? And this pasuk repeats itself over and over again. Ken haba el eshet re'ehu. So is one who's going to consort with his fellow's wife. Just as one can't play with fire without being burned, So one cannot engage in infidelity without paying the price. That person is going to face unfortunate suffering of all kinds of sufferings. We talk about Gehenom, the fires of Gehenom, the fiery flames of hell. What does that mean? What does that mean? Right? Gehenom in Judaism isn't like the Christian idea of hell. Okay, we don't believe that there's a guy with red horns and a red tail with a pitchfork waiting there to dip you in lava over and over again. That's definitely not our vision of Gehenom. We don't believe in that stuff. So what is the definition of Gehenom? How do we understand that? Let's try to understand this today. So in Judaism, there's God. God is kulotov. He's awesome. He's great. Perfect. Does not want anyone to experience anything bad. There is no negative force fighting against God. The three angels, known as the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death. Who is it? Yetzer Hara, Malach HaMavet, and the Satan are all the same Malach. All three of those, Satan, Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, and the evil inclination are all the same angel. He works for God. He's got a job. His boss is God. He's not fighting him. He's not trying to take away his throne. We don't believe in that stuff. Everything, that's what the idea of one God. One God means there's only one God, one power that controls everything. So what is Gehenna? What is hell in Judaism? Okay. Some of you are going to like this and some of you are not going to like this too much. Okay. So let's go through it. Imagine for a moment a circle. Okay. And in the circle, you have a little dot right there in the middle. You can't see this because it's glowing too much, but you have a little dot right there in the middle. Okay. That middle point represents God. Okay. Let's try to make it a bit more understandable. So you have can you see that? No, you can't. Wait. On the right angle. Okay, fine. So you have God right there in the middle. Okay, he's in the middle of my graph. Then you have these circles, concentric circles. And these circles represent distance from God. Okay. The people that make it to the middle, that's Gan Eden. That's paradise. That is highest level of spiritual perfection. But as you move along further and further away from that center, that's hell. Hell, Gehenom, is the recognition like this. Let's play it out for you. Person lives to 120, now he's dead. You know what happens? He's reborn into another reality. Just like when you were in utero in your mom's womb, your life ended. Think about it for a moment. You had lungs but could not breathe. You had a mouth, but you were not going to, no eating, no speaking. A nose, couldn't smell. Okay. A whole entire digestive system barely functioning. And then there's a tunnel and a light at the end of it. And you were literally thrown out of a world of perfect comfort in the womb. Everything was there: food, heat, comfort, everything. You didn't need anything else. You're a great place. And then in a moment, it's all gone. You come into a world naked, cold, you're exposed. And now you have all these weird sensations. Your ears are opening up, your eyes are opening up, your lungs are breathing, your whole old self dies, and you're reborn into a new world. You live 120 years, and this is what you think existence is. You think that this is reality. It's not. This is not reality. This is a form of reality. At some point, this body gets put back into the earth. That moment when we're buried after 120 is when we're reborn into a new reality. A new level of consciousness, a new level of awareness happens. And in that awareness, you're like, oh my God, I'm a soul. It's true. Everything that we spoke about, no more uncertainty. It's, oh my God, it's true. And you are where you are and you can't change. At that moment, some of you will realize, thank God I hedged my bets. I gave charity. I went to synagogue. I learned. I prayed. I was a good father. I did my part. Right? Good. And some of us, unfortunately, are going to have this moment and be like, oh, darn it. I messed up. I can't change anymore. I'm stuck. I am where I am. It's all true. All those moments that I could have given charity, all those moments where I could have done good, I could have volunteered, I could have helped, I could have been selfless and not selfish. I should not have gotten angry. I should have worked on myself, been a better person. All of that's, I'm stuck where I am. That feeling, the recognition of knowing that it's true, and you are where you are. You can't grow anymore. You're stuck on that rung. You are out here, right? You can't get closer to the source because of your choices. That awareness is Gehenom. I'll prove to you. It comes from a pasuk. It says it's a verse that comes from Isaac. Isaac asks Esav, to go out and get him some shawarma. He wants to have a meal. Okay, so he goes out and he goes hunting. And in the meantime, Rivka tells Yaakov, go, I got the shawarma ready, go bring it to your dad. So he goes into the room and he gets the blessing from his father. We know the story. Jacob walks out, Esav walks in, says, Abba, give me the bracha, I got you your shawarma. He says, too late, some guy just took it, I just gave it to some guy. Pasuk says, at that moment, V'chared chreda gdola, and Isaac had a terrible trembling, a very, very strong trembling. Rashi says over there, Gehenom ptucha lefanav, that the gates of hell opened up in front of Isaac. Now, I don't know about you. I don't want to see the gates of hell. Okay? And Isaac, who's a patriarch, one of the greatest of the patriarchs, some people would argue, how does he see Gehenom? How does he see stuff? How does he see hell? Why is that hell? Do you know what hell is? Hell on earth is the recognition at the end of your life you made a mistake and you can't change it. Hell is when Isaac believed his whole life that Esav was going to be the guy to receive these blessings, and really he was the wrong guy for the job. It was really Yaakov the whole time. That's Gehenom. That's what hell is. In Judaism, hell is, I think, scarier. I'd rather be burnt in a pitchfork with some guy in the lava and believe that that's going to change me, allow me to grow, than believe that I'm stuck forever. This is why Jews take Kaddish, the idea of saying, this special blessings when someone passes away, the idea of doing Mishnayot, the idea of learning in someone's honor, giving charity in someone's honor when they die. We believe you can still change. You're not stuck. I'll end something positive because I don't want to leave you on a bad note. So we know that this is based on this is Rav Sajagon. He says there are 3 times that a person's judged. On the day that you're Yom Kippur. Every Yom Kippur is one day. That's the day you're judged. Okay. The second time you're judged on the day of your death. And the third time you're judged is when? By Techiyat HaMeitim, by the resurrection of the dead. And the question you should all be asking is, Rabbi, I get the first 2. Okay. Yom Kippur, I get it every year. And the day I'm died, it's over, game over. What am I being judged for? Part 3. Like what's left? Where's the judgment? And the answer is like this. There's no way to measure the totality of a person's deeds until the end of time, which means, hopefully, you left to yourself continue being as simple as walking into domain and smiling. Impact is immeasurable. And God forbid the opposite is true. When you walk into a public domain and you're sad and you're pouting and you're unhappy and you're depressed, that could also have a negative impact, and there's no way to calculate that. We are here for a short period of time. And the only question we should be asking ourselves is, how are we using this time to become individuals that are maximizing our time? That's what this is. This whole reality existence is an opportunity to do one thing. How do I bring good to the world? Because I have a limited amount of time to grow myself as a human being. And in that time, I could expand my soul to reach the most pinnacle, most beautiful, sublime places of spirituality. And I could only do it here. This world is a world of growth. This world is a world of opportunity. It's gone at some point. So Shlomo Melech is telling us over here, he says, you're going to suffer ki haba elei shatr, someone who allows himself to get lost into lust, okay, that person's going to suffer the fires again. If that's what you're here for, if you're here to lose yourself to lust, have it, enjoy it at the right time. You want to lust, enjoy it at the right time, right? It's this unique opportunity we have over here to grow as individuals that we don't want to waste. And this is what he's here. He's telling us that, listen, lo yikane kol hanogeh ba, anyone who touches her, okay, will not be exonerated from that punishment. Anyone who loses themselves in a world of lust will be unfortunately stuck in this world of payment, and it's going to hurt. Lo yibuz laganav ki ignov lamale nafsho ki yirav. A thief is not overly scorned if he steals to satisfy his soul when he's hungry. Why? Because someone who's stealing is hungry. He shouldn't be punished. He's not the same like a person who's an adulterer. He's not the same like a person who's just eating, Winkies all day. Okay, you could learn a lot from a thief. He's active. He does it at night because he used the nighttime to do all. He's embarrassed. He doesn't. If a thief is, he fails. He doesn't give up. He tries again. Okay, there's a certain honor code amongst thieves. He's going to risk his life for small accomplishments. Even if he steals something valuable, he doesn't let it go. He doesn't let it go to his head. He's going to sell it for a low price. He loves his craft and he won't trade it for something else. These are all, things that we can use for spiritual success, that we shouldn't lose ourselves to arrogance. Like we could learn even from a ganav, from a thief. So what are we supposed to take out over here? Okay. This idea that we're going to pay for our actions. Noef isha chaser lev. But he who commits adultery with a woman is lacking understanding in heart. Someone who flirts is devoid of understanding. Someone who loses themselves to passion, fool. What are you trading? What are you trading for? You're trading for a few moments of pleasure, for a life of eternity. This is not the end, my friends. There's much more. This is the beginning. Mashchit nafsho hu yasena, a destroyer of his soul will do this. He commits to sin. He wants to commit the sin of immorality for a few moments of pleasure. Nega v'kolon yimatzeh, plague and shame will this person find. Right? Plagues come from the sins of idolatry and adultery. An adulterer receives plague from heaven and is going to be disgraced among the people. Okay, that person will be wounded, okay, and for the rest of his spiritual life. There is only tzedek, there's only justice in this world, and it's measure for measure. It's terrifying. Everything that we have is calculated. It's not an accident. There's no accidents. Everything is precise. It's tit for tat. But how are we evaluating all this? Based on your effort. How hard are you trying to grow? I don't care what the end result looks like. I want to know what you're doing to grow. What are you doing to become a greater human being? How are you investing in becoming something bigger? This is what Shlomo Melech wants from us. Nega v'kolon yimatzeh, plague and shame will he find. V'charto lo timachen, and disgrace will not be erased. It's not going to be forgotten. A thief, he could pay for his crime with money. But a philanderer, someone who flirts, right? Yeah, he's going to suffer plague. You can't pay the money back. What do? If you lose yourself to licentious behavior, how do you pay that back? Okay, I stole your thing. I'm sorry. Here it is. Mechela, forgive me. Right? It's interesting. One of the things that I found in my years in dealing with couples is that there's two kinds of adulteries. There's what we call adultery, the classical definition of adultery, and then there's something else called emotional infidelity, right? Emotional adultery, where you could go ahead and give into someone else's, emotional desires. They could spend time in sharing with that person and developing a relationship with that person. No physical touching, but just that emotional connection. I have found that when there's emotional infidelity in a relationship, you can't fix that relationship. It's over. It's broken. If there's just adultery, just a physical relationship, some guy or whatever it is, they went to like a one-night fling, I could fix that. That's repairable, because whatever, people make mistakes, they're stupid, but emotional infidelity requires effort, energy, and time. Okay, that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other animal that I can't fix. So how you spend your time, what you do, that defines everything. Okay, a philanderer will be the object of shame, whereas the thief, that disgrace will end when that person makes a payment. Okay, that disgrace will be forever. Okay, the philanderer. You choose. Ki kin'a chamad gever lo yachmol bayom nakem. I have two more psukim and we're going to finish up. We have two more verses. Let's finish this up. Because jealousy ignites a husband's wrath, and he will not have mercy on the day of revenge. The betrayed husband will be furious and want vengeance. He's not going to have any mercy on the philanderer when he finds an opportunity for revenge. Meaning, this woman, you're the person cheating. The spouse will find out what's happening, and they're going to want to take revenge. Rashi says this word gever, okay, ki kana chamat gever, is not talking about a man; it's talking about God. God, okay, his wrath will be kindled to take revenge and punish this person. And he's not going to have any compassion on the day of revenge. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen who were made such bad mistakes and destroy their families, and they're still suffering today. Bad choices, regrets. It's painful. Lo yisa panai v'kol kofer. He was not going to be appeased by any ransom. God will not accept any payment to appease his anger. There's no tzedakah. I'm going to give charity. I'll fix it. No, there's certain things you do that are forever. Okay, and he will not relent though the bribe may be made. No matter, he's not going to agree to forgive you even if you make any bribes. Unlike the sin of theft, the sin of theft can be appeased by giving the money back. But for this, you lose yourself to your passions. It is unfortunately painful. It's very hard to erase. So we're finishing up chapter 6 over here. Okay, what are we meant to take away from all of this? Okay, how do we, what's the lesson over here? Okay, it's worse and more unforgivable than theft when you lose yourself to your passions. Passion is a consuming fire. Careful, you're going to get burnt. You're going to play with that, you're going to get burnt. So be very, very careful how you involve yourself in your passions. Build a firewall for yourself. Clarify what you want. Don't lose yourself into stupid relationships. Don't allow yourself to get lost into pleasures without clarifying what you want, because you could become lost in those things. If you're someone who has who is developing themselves through their learning, someone who is developing themselves through the development of their character, you have less to be concerned of, but even that person has to be concerned. God willing, we'll pick up next week. We're going to start chapter 7. Very exciting. This gets much more intense as we move along. I want to wish you an amazing week, an amazing night. May you recognize that you are souls with a body and not just bodies with a soul. May you be blessed with the clarity to make the right choices so you could live in an eternal bliss. Lalo to everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure, guys.
Bye.
Looking
Bye.
forward to seeing you all next week.